Okay, so last week we started going through a book called Pnei Halacha in Hebrew. The title is called Mishpacha. It's not yet been translated, and we read the first section about mitzvah, mitzvat hanisuin. I think it was called the essence of the mitzvah, and then we started off the second paragraph, which is called Ha'ava ve'ha'achdut, love and unity. To recap, for those who were not here last week, and to bring us back, thank you very much. Thank you so much, sweet. To recap, Rav Melamed stressed that it is a mitzvah, or there is a dual mitzvah when you get married. One is to have children, no question about it. Puravu, first mitzvah in the Torah. And there's a lot of details about the specifics. How many children? Boy, girl, mitzvah on the man, mitzvah on the woman, etc., etc. But there's a second aspect of marriage, and that is the mitzvah of having a loving relationship with your wife, with your spouse, in and of itself, because it is a good thing. That's the first paragraph you have on your page. We read it last time. If someone could read it for us, maybe Yosef, will you read it for us out loud? Sure. This is a poor translation. I say from the start, I used Google Translate, and this time I didn't even review it. But we'll get the ideas. Go ahead.
Many people mistakenly think that marriage is mainly intended to fulfill the mitzvah of Peru and Rabu. But the truth is that the value of marriage is greater and higher. To understand this, we need to return to the basics of faith. Hashem created a world when it was lacking, so that humans could repair it and make it good and happy. And by doing so, they would have the privilege of being partners with Hashem in all the good in the world. And their joy in it would be complete. The division is the deepest flaw that exists in creation. Indeed, the Kadosh Baruch Hu created all creatures, but since He hid His light, the creatures became separate from Him. Blessed be He. And in any case, they also became separate from each other. When each takes care of himself, all conflicts, dispute, fights, and wars stem from this. The main trend of Israel's faith is to overcome the barriers and believe in a Kadosh Baruch Hu and discover unity in the world. This world is called Alma Difroda and Alma Dishikra, the world of division and lies, in which the root of unity is not recognized, and all the evils in the world stem from this. On the other hand, the main belief of Israel is the belief in uniqueness, belief in Hakadosh Baruch Hu, and in this way we correct the world.
In one God is this the idea. Belief in one God. And this way we correct the world. We're trying to fix the world. We're all into unity. That's the name of the chapter on top. Ahava ve'achdut, love and unity. And so getting married and making a union out of two separate people is fixing the world. It's going all the way back to the division of Bereshit. God separated the sky from the earth and the land from all these separations everywhere. We have to bring them back together to create the unity. So far, so good. So far, so good. So now we're going to continue this idea, and he says this idea that our job is to bring things together, various different things, also comes to expression not only in the mitzvah of marriage, as we're going to see soon, but in the mitzvah of settling the land. So Shmuel, will you read the second paragraph?
This is also the reason for the great importance of the mitzvah of settling the land, which connects heaven and earth. Because the most fundamental separation is the separation between heaven and earth, which is expressed in the separation between spirit and matter, between vision and reality, between the creator and creation. By the mitzvah of settling the land, it is revealed that God is God in heaven and on earth, and all earthly matters are linked to holiness. This is why the sages said in Ketuvot Ki that every man in the land of Israel is like one who has God.
It's actually Ketuvot 110. Somehow they got to translation that key. But okay, anyways, every man in the land of Israel.
Every man in the land of Israel is like one who has God, and every man outside the land is like one who has no God. as if he were a worshipper of Kadosh. And the value of unity is also the basis for the excessive importance of the commandment and love your neighbor as yourself, of which Rabbi Akiva said that it is a great rule in the Torah.
Okay, so settling the land, the truth is, he's obviously referring to the pasuk, the Gemara in Ketuvot 110, which talks about the settling the land of Israel. But it's true about every settlement that human society makes the land livable. Essentially, it's bringing union between the upper heavenly realm and the earth. We're trying to civilize the earth. That's also an element of unity. We're talking about relationships, we're talking about the relationships of marriage, and we're talking about the importance of marriage. That's what we started with last week, and this week we're continuing on the theme, stressing, Rav Melamed is teaching us here that an element of marriage is the very unity, the very fact that two people get together and they create one unit out of two separate beings is essentially fixing a very basic element of what we're supposed to be doing in the world. We're supposed to be fixing, the world was created with lots of divisions. That's the flaw existing in creation, and our job is to be God's partners to complete, once again, to bring together that whole. When it comes to Kiddushin, between man and wife, there's an expression in the Talmud that says that man is, you know what mitzvah you do when you're getting married? Hashavat Aveidah. It's turning a lost object. What do you see? What's the lost object? Right? Adam lost his rib. He's got to get it back. So we were united. It was somehow one unit, one entity at first. The whole story is about bringing back the unity. Okay? We read the last paragraph, please? It's a poor translation. I apologize, but it's Google. Go ahead.
No one can understand the greatness of the commandment of love and joy between a man and his wife, by which the commandment, and love your neighbor as yourself, is fulfilled in its entirety. And it expresses the greatest unity, which completely unites two separate and different people. This unity is doubled and multiplied, a unity of man and his wife, and a unity of soul and body. Many times there is a contrast between the soul and the body. The soul longs for spiritual pleasures, and from that to good, and the body is drawn to physical pleasures, and from that to evil. The soul longs for eternity, and the body for the past and present. In this mitzvah, the soul and the body unite together, and even the bad instinct turns into a good one. By this commandment, the noble idea of loyalty and unity is connected to the greatest carnal pleasure. The moral value of total devotion is connected with the greatest joy, and the fleeting physical joy is united with the eternal existence for generations.
It's a quoting from himself, from Pninei Halacha, and they wrote it in Hebrew. It's written as an acronym, Pei Nun He Lamed. So they translated as Phil. Google couldn't figure out Pninei Halacha, what the Rashi Tevot were. But the point is, an amazing thing what he just said, that there's a union of body and soul, specifically in the mitzvah that is a physical mitzvah, like settling the land. It's a physical thing, but you're doing it as part of a mitzvah from God. You're bringing godliness into the world. Same thing, we have a physical side, we have carnal pleasure, right? The sexual drive. That's part of the human being. It's part of how we're made up. Usually we think, we gotta avoid it. That's gonna bring us to sin. That's a bad thing. There are other religions, of course, where their priests don't get married because of that, because they're trying to be spiritual. Our approach seems to be a little different. That the enormous value of this mitzvah is specifically because it's relating to the physical, purely mundane, or even physical, materialistic, physical drives, pleasures. No, they don't have to be only something which is base and disconnected from godliness, disconnected from spirituality. When you use the physical union as part of it, the physical pleasure as part of a union, as part of two people coming together, so then, coming together, unity, that's what we said. The purpose of creation is to have unity. So as long as you're using the physical need, the body, in order to put the soul into it, and it's double when you talk about two people. We're talking about two people getting married. So you not only have the uniting two different people, and you create one bond, it's one unit, but also a big part of the sexual of a marriage is a sexual relationship, and in sex you're taking another union, the union of the spirit and the body. What you're doing in a marriage, of course, there's a lot of things which are spiritual, a lot of meeting of the minds, but there's also a physical relationship, and that physical relationship is not a bad one. It's not something that you just have to do because you have to have children. Something which is an expression of the union which you're trying to create. The union of two people, two souls, gets expressed in the union of two bodies. This is Rav Melamed's approach. It's an amazing approach. And it can be a little bit scary to talk about the physical things in such a positive manner, because they're dangerous, because the physical drives are very powerful. And if you say, well, it's a positive thing, you could say, okay, so let's have more and more and more and more sex. And you could get overwhelmed. And when you do, you involve yourself with physical pleasure. It's like alcohol, right? The Muslims don't allow alcohol whatsoever. There's no kiddush. But we say, what do you mean? You make kiddush for Shabbat. It's dangerous, because some people have another kiddush and another kiddush and another kiddush and another kiddush, and before you know it, they're an alcoholic. It can be addictive. Same thing with the other pleasures in the world, and there are sex addicts as well. But our approach is not to cut off the physical world and say, no, it's not good, it's bad. We can elevate it. We elevate it. How do we elevate it? By making it part of this idea of unity, the idea of that the mitzvah of marriage is not only for the children, it's also for the relationship itself, for the love, which creates a union. So far, so good? Okay, now, I debated about this. The Rabbi Melamed continues to talk about this in another book, the book that he quoted here, which was cut off in the quote. And it's a book which has been translated to English. And we actually have it in our library. I did notice we don't have enough copies for everybody. So in any case, I'm a little hesitant to send you to read the book because it's quite graphic. This is a book that's designed for married people. It talks about sex, the laws of sex in halacha, in many different aspects. When, right, what's it called? What's the mitzvah to have relations called? Pruvu is having children. There's a word for actually having relations. We mentioned it last time. In some contexts it means times. In some contexts it means response. The word is ona. Ona. It says in the Torah, it's pasuk in the Torah, that a man who marries a woman, he has to not deprive her of the three basic responsibilities, and that is she'er, ksut, and ona. Ona refers, it can mean times, it can mean responses. He has to be responsive to her sexual needs. She, of course, has to be responsible to his sexual needs. So response. So basically the mitzvah, the other book of Rabbi Melamed, it's a white book. He made it a little different than the yellow series. You know, all his books here we have here, we learn from his books because they're so well written. They're all in yellow. This book, he said, it's part of the series, but not quite, because it's only for, it's much more explicit and graphic. And the laws should not be studied by somebody who's a young kid with his hormones raging, and that's not appropriate. But it's mitzvah in the Torah. We have to deal with it. So basically, it's about the mitzvah of ona. It's a nice way of saying sex. Okay, the mitzvah of ona. And the name of the book is, you have it here. Next page. So what I did is this is the beginning, chapter 1, from section 1, and this is from the English version. It was professionally translated. Don't have to apologize for the English here, and you'll see it's much better. But here he relates to the mitzvah of ona in the context of a marriage, sort of completing the picture of what he's doing in the book called Mishpacha, about the mitzvah of marriage in general. Here he focuses in on the mitzvah of having relations. Mitzvah of having relations is an expression of, or a central part of the mitzvah of getting married. So let's, who is reading? So Shlomo, will you read the first paragraph, please, for us? The name of the book appears on the top of the page, Simchat Habayit Ubirkato. Translated into English, Simchat Habayit Ubirkato. Now, what does that mean? It means the joy of the home and its blessings. So the book is about two mitzvot. It's about two things. The joy of the home, that's the euphemism for sex. Mitzvah is about, the book is about ona. It's about Simchat Habayit. The joy of the home. It's a joyous thing. Sexual relations are pleasurable. That's why it's referred to in the Talmud as the joy of the home. But the book is also about one more thing. Ubirkato. It's blessing. What does that mean? What does that refer to? What's the blessing that's the result of Simchat Habayit? Kids. It's about kids and having kids and how many kids you have to have and birth control and all those kind of things. So that book has a lot of interesting, very important halachot in it. It's not all about sex and sexual relations. It's also about children and having children. And what about if you can't have children? And fertility treatments and all those kind of things. It doesn't have the laws of family purity. That's a separate book. There's another book called Taharat HaMishpacha. But this book is called Simchat Habayit Ubirkato, and this is chapter 1, the mitzvah of marital sexual relations. He gets right into it. But the framework is important. The approach to ona as being a good thing, as central part of this union, basically completing the idea which we learned last week and this week. So let's read it inside. Shmuel, go ahead. A complete person. No, Shlomo, go ahead. Please, yeah.
A complete person is one who lives a joyful and loving marriage. A man is not complete without his wife, and a woman is not complete without her husband.
If you remember, those who were here last week, that's how we started off talking about the mitzvah of marriage. The mitzvah of marriage is so important because it brings you completeness, regardless of the children. Right? A man without a woman is not called complete. We mentioned the story of finding the lost rib, and there he went on further about how a man who's not married doesn't have blessing. He doesn't have, what else didn't he have? Right? Man who's not married is without Torah. He's without peace, without joy. What?
Without wall.
Without wall, something like that. We didn't know what that meant, but he was without a wall. And there's a lot of things that a man is missing if he's not married. It's a mitzvah to be married. Complete. First thing, though, what he mentioned over there, and he repeats it here, is that a man is not complete, and a woman is not complete without her husband. Okay. Now, go ahead.
The essence of their union is expressed through the mitzvah on sexual relations, by which they become completely united in body and in spirit, making their marriage whole. The mitzvah must be fulfilled with passion and ecstasy. The husband trying to bring his wife as much joy and pleasure as possible, and the wife trying to bring her husband as much joy and pleasure as possible. For this reason, the mitzvah is referred to in a simchat ona, the joy of marital sexual relations. There is no greater joy in the world. It is foretaste of the
Euphoria
of the world to come.
This all comes from the Talmud. He's not making this stuff up. We all know that it's a pleasurable thing, and we're not denying it. It's actually a mitzvah. It's called simchat ona. It's a joyous mitzvah. Of all the mitzvahs, which one are you going to enjoy more? Putting on tefillin or having marital relations? You say tefillin, huh? Oh, you're such a holy man. But we consider someone holy who has less enjoyment, right? It's strange. But maybe we're influenced by the Christians. It's not a bad thing to enjoy your mitzvahs. It's a good thing. And sure, it's a mitzvah to light the Hanukkah candles. I was pretty happy when I light my Hanukkah candles. But, it doesn't really give you much pleasure. It's a joy to make Kiddush on Shabbat. I'm happy. I drink a cup of wine. It's nice. I like wine. Having relations is even more enjoyable. It's a very unique mitzvah in that way. It's a mitzvah which is a lot of fun. Nothing wrong with that. Actually, he goes on to explain that this is how and why this is a mitzvah. And it relates to what we were saying in the other book. Okay, so go ahead. Idam, will you read the next paragraph for us? Through the framework of marriage.
Through the framework of marriage, a person can achieve the ultimate fulfillment of the mitzvah to love your fellow as yourself, in Vayikra, which Rabbi Akiva calls a major principle of the Torah. It is only between spouses that love is expressed in all aspects of life, spiritual and physical alike. Thus, when a married couple lives together lovingly, each loving the other no less than they love themselves, and desiring to bring joy to the other no less than they want for themselves, they fulfill the entire Torah in a concentrated form.
Wow. One mitzvah, you can fulfill the entire Torah. Wow. Concentrated form of giving to each other. This is an expression of the love. Ahavta l'reacha kamocha. How do you translate Ahavta l'reacha kamocha? Love your neighbor as yourself. Well, I hope you're not having sex with your neighbor, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. What does it mean, love your neighbor? It means the other. It doesn't mean necessarily your neighbor. Another translation, some people say love your friend. Reacha. Rea is a friend. Okay, a friend, somebody you like, so you love them. It's a strong, loving relationship. Well, hopefully the ideal perhaps is that your spouse will be your best friend. So when you love your friend as yourself, Rabbi Akiva said that this refers to marriage. How do we know? It's a strange law. So when you're going out to date, to get married, are you dating yet? Gedalia?
Me?
Yeah. No. You're young, of course. Yeah. Say it. A few things you got to get in order before you're ready to be married. It's not easy. So you have to prepare yourself. But at the right time, there's a halacha about dating. What's the halacha I'm referring to?
Someone here?
Nope, that's an important one. This is a halacha from Rabbi Akiva himself. The same Rabbi Akiva who says that love your neighbor as yourself. This is a major principle of the Torah. You know what he says about dating? He says you're not allowed to get married unless you have one date. You have to have at least one date. It doesn't say how many. And you know why he says?
You have to know the person.
You know what he says in his own words? He says because ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. And what happens if you marry her without seeing her? Then there's nothing there. There's no physical attraction. The love will be incomplete. You'll be missing out your opportunity of fulfilling the mitzvah of Ahavta L'Recha Kamocha to its greatest extent. You have to have the potential for love in your potential spouse. So that's what the one date, the minimum one date, is for. He says, because Ahavta L'Recha Kamocha. In other words, you get married in order to fulfill the Ahavta L'Recha Kamocha. In other words, Ahavta L'Recha Kamocha, we're looking for a love which is so strong, it gets expressed in all of life and also physically as well. The physical giving to each other is what fosters the love. We spoke about it last class, how actually giving, the word ahava has the Aramaic word hav inside of it. It means to give. He said that the more you give, the more you love something. Right, the Tamagotchi, the Japanese Tamagotchi game, right? They take care of your pet. You love them more and more. You're giving to them. You get out of giving. This is how the way love works. Okay, but more particularly, the sexual relationship, the relations, is part of the couple getting closer to each other. All right, Gedalia, read the next one. So powerful.
So powerful is the mitzvah of Ona, that is fulfillment brings the Shekhinah, divine presence, to dwell with the couple. As Rabbi Akiva expounds, if husband and wife are worthy, the Shekhinah is with them. If they are not, fire consumes them.
Remember, we went that last week. You weren't here, but we went through we put it on the board, the Ish and Isha, the extra Yud here, the extra Hey there, and that creates the divine name. You heard that one before? And without the divine name, what do you get? He left with an Aleph and a Shin, which is Ish, which is fire. Okay, so Shekhinah, you go ahead, yeah.
Moreover, it is through the sacred mitzvah that the couple can fulfill the mitzvah of procreation.
Uruvu.
Which makes them God's partners in the creation of new life. As the sages said, there are three partners in the creation of a person: God, the Father, and the Mother.
Wow. So, wait a minute. Procreation. I thought I was alone in my bedroom.
No.
No, huh? Who else is there?
And
The Shekhinah. No. Don't get confused. That's too weird for me. Sorry. The Shekhinah, the divine presence. Right, because you're creating a baby. How did you create a baby? Only with God. So there's godliness there. So it's not a bad thing. Sex is not evil. Sex is not base. Sex is not some dark corner of our lives that we have to do because there's no other way to make children. It's a divine thing to make children. Hashem is there. It's a very spiritual, holy act, and that's the Shekhinah is there with you. It's a wholly different approach. Okay, when a marriage founders, now this is an interesting proof. You may have heard of this mitzvah called sota. Who can tell me about what a sota is?
So water.
Sota waters. There's waters associated with it. What are these waters?
Bitter water.
Bitter waters. They're probably bitter. I imagine they're not sweet. What's the story in the Torah? The Torah has a whole story about this sota woman, actually. Waters of the sota, because they're connected to the sota woman. So who's this sota woman? What is a sota woman?
She was
Suspected
possibly
of being
unfaithful.
is suspected of cheating.
Right. And his wife are married for a number of years, and he suspects her of being unfaithful. So what's the ideal? The ideal is that they live happily ever after, that she's not unfaithful. But he has a gnawing suspicion because she was hanging out with this guy. And he warned her, told her, hey, don't hang out with this guy. I suspect you guys of being too friendly. And she doesn't heed the warnings. And she hangs out with this guy. She even secludes herself with him. But there's still we don't know. Did she sleep with him or not? Maybe they were just watching the ball game. Who knows what they were doing in the hotel room? Who knows? Circumstantial evidence, but we want to keep the marriage together. We want her to really be faithful. We don't want it to be that she was unfaithful and then they get divorced. It's all about unity, right? So the Torah tries, she says to him, listen, I didn't do it. I was in the hotel room, it's true, but we didn't do anything. I wasn't unfaithful to you. She wants to live with him. He wants to believe her, but he can't believe her because she suspects her. So the Torah devised an entire system. And the way the rabbis read the system is the system, first of all, it's a way for her to get her to tell the truth, to sort of force her into scaring her into telling the truth. But the ideal situation is that it will become clear to the husband that she is telling the truth and that she was faithful. And then they can live happily ever after again. He won't have the suspicion. And she didn't commit adultery. It'll be great. But how can we get rid of the suspicion? So the Torah suggests a miraculous intervention. It's a wild, wild system. And you should know about it. I'm not giving you any chidushim here about the procedure itself. He brings her to the Beit HaMikdash, and the story in the Torah, the parsha in the Torah, which talks about this suspected adulterous woman, gets written down on a parchment, like a Sefer Torah, like a mezuzah, and it gets thrown into some water, and then she drinks the water. And if she is innocent, nothing happens to her. They go back. The husband's mind is put to ease. She was telling the truth all along, and now I can live happily ever after. Marital peace is reinstated. If she did sin, and she was cheating on him and not telling the truth, miraculously, she will swell up and die. She's an adulteress. The Beit Din would have put her to death if we had witnesses, if there was capital punishment in such an age, in such a circumstance. But there's no witnesses. We can't do it ourselves. God says, I'm going to step in and I'll do a miracle. Yeah. But God says, I'm going to step in and do a miracle. And how does he do the miracle? By this special waters. Now there's a significant thing here, this procedure. Why is he doing that? Because God wants to allay the husband's fears, suspicions, so that he can go back to her in peace and harmony and live happily ever after, because it's such a big mitzvah to keep the family together. That's already telling. That's already showing you how important it is to have this union. God's willing to make this whole procedure so they can get back together again. It goes beyond that, though. Something about the story I just told you is forbidden. What part about this whole procedure I just described is forbidden?
That you're outside of the law?
No, what's outside the law? What do you mean?
Taking matters into your own hands.
Oh no, this is following what the Torah tells us to do. This not we didn't make this stuff up. The Torah tells this is what you should do. If this man suspects his wife, you take her to Jerusalem, take her to his water. You're not allowed to erase the name of God. Now in that portion of the Torah, which we write on a parchment, put in the water, is the name of God. What happens when you put parchment with the ink on it in water? It dissolves. You're violating a prohibition of the Torah to never erase God's name.
What if you wrap it in like saran
You're not allowed to. It says you have to put the parchment in the water, and the water dissolves. The ink dissolves. The writing dissolves. Our sages learned from this even more explicitly that God said, "I am willing to put my own honor." Right? Why are you not allowed to erase the name of God? Because it's not respect for Hashem's name. Hashem's name shouldn't be spoken out of order. It should not be written down. It should not be destroyed and made light of. And here it says, Hashem says, I'm willing to have my name dissolved, destroyed. For what? Why? Shalom Bayit, so that the family will get back together again. The husband won't suspect his wife wrongly if she was innocent. So he's pulling miracles out of his pocket, and he's violating his own prohibitions. Tells us to violate the prohibition. Tells us, I'm willing to do that. It's our sage's understanding. And that's what Rav Melamed explains in the next paragraph. So who's reading now? Yosef? When the marriage founders, because the husband suspects the wife of infidelity. Go ahead, Yosef.
The Torah prescribes...
prescribes. Go ahead.
Yeah. The Sotzah procedure, which includes writing Hashem's name on parchment and placing it in a potion that is administered to the wife. Under normal circumstances, erasing Hashem's name is a grave transgression. Yet Hashem commands us to erase His sacred name in order to repair and bring peace to marriage. Indeed, erasing the written name of Hashem allows His name to inhere in their marital life.
You hear what he does there? He says that, is God actually erasing His name? The end result is going to be a greater enhancement of God's name. How? Where? In their marriage itself. We said Shekhinah is part of a marriage. So Hashem is willing to let the name get dissolved in the water so that the name, the actual Shekhinah, will be present in the world and they won't get divorced. The other option, of course, is divorce. If they die or she dies or whatever, that marriage is definitely coming apart if he doesn't do something. So God, it says, the name of God is going to inhere in the marital life. Okay, Shmuel, go ahead, next.
Marriage is so paramount that the sages say any man without a wife is not considered a man. And any man without a wife lives without joy, without blessing, without goodness, without Torah, without fortification, and without peace. A woman without a husband lacks all these as well. Since the mitzvah of honor is the fundamental expression of a marriage, all of these advantages are thus directly connected to this mitzvah.
Okay, so this we saw without a wall, without fortification. This is the passage we saw last week. We talked about it. A man without a wife lives without joy, blessing, goodness, without Torah, fortification, and peace. Okay, so all this is Ona is important. Let's finish it off, Eov.
Since the foundation of the relationship between husband and wife is so important, the trial associated with it likewise is exceptionally powerful. God has given people freedom of choice. When a person directs the sex drive positively towards the fulfillment of the mitzvah of honor, there is nothing greater. When it is channeled negatively, there is nothing worse.
Okay, and then the rest, he's got the first half of the book is talking about the details of the mitzvah of Ona. As I said, it's not appropriate for us to study that right now, but we're using this chapter because it's the completion of his approach to marriage in general. The marriage, the bond, the unity, the love, the relationship is the value, why marriage is so prominent, why it's such an important mitzvah in the Torah, over and above the issue of having children. That's why you find people who are beyond childbearing age, supposed to still get married. People who can have children, still supposed to get married. But, this is, we have to stop here for today, but it's easy to say. This is the principles. This is the ideal world. We all know that life is messy and relationships are difficult. And we talked about what a cool thing. This mitzvah is better than the mitzvah of making kiddush. Well, if it works, it's better. If it doesn't work, it could be quite painful. It can be difficult. And Shlomo, I think that might be yours. We're finishing up in here anyways. But the ideal, though, is important to start with the fundamentals, with the principles, with the goal. We don't live in an ideal world. The truth is, even when I make kiddush, I don't do it so great all the time, and I, don't love wine as much as I talk about, and sometimes, you don't always have the wine that you want or that you need, and sometimes you have to make kiddush. You don't have any wine. What do you make kiddush on? Bread or grape juice, right? So so too with marriage. The ideal is every marriage is a perfect, loving one, and the relationship is great, and the Shekhinah is there. And that's what we're striving for. Bezrat Hashem, we will all merit such a wonderful fulfillment of mitzvahs and enjoy them. Bezrat Hashem. Coming up in a few months, my 30th anniversary.